I'm Mary C. Anderson, in case you all don't remember me. And coming in here soon, Nancy, we have our other host. And I'm not saying a word. I'm not saying a word, but you know, I hate to do this. We have to adjust this camera just slightly this way because I think, is that better? Are we, okay. It's up to you all to decide what is going on.
It's winter. If I look like a walrus, it's appropriate, right?
Yes, because we have all been spending a bodacious, I'm going through the dictionary, a bodacious amount of time sliding around on what we call Wisconsin winter this year, which is ice.
I know.
Yeah, Nancy broke a hip or almost broke a hip.
No,
we couldn't do some shows because she was whining. I'm hurt. But today,
it's better.
We are together. I successfully made it down Nancy's luge run.
But I got some sand out there
I
now.
know, I saw that. I was so excited.
Wonderful. I got to get my glasses
And
here.
she can't see what's going on. I have my spectacles.
See, I forgot.
I am prepared.
I can't remember everything, but we're going to do another kitchen edition because it's still January.
Yes,
It's still winter.
And this is the history files, in case you didn't catch it. And I said it, and she never introduced herself. Who are you?
I'm Nancy Bergman, and this is...
Well, I already did me. They know who I am.
Yeah.
I did mine right away when you ran off, and
who you are.
I don't know what you were doing. You were dealing with Zip. Zip is having a light afternoon snack of turkey hot dog.
Yep.
And so
she's happy right now. She's outside, so.
Yes, and the weather's beautiful. It's about 25, 27 degrees.
Except we haven't seen the sun for about a month.
Well, no, and I checked the other day and I thought I had fungus growing behind my ears, like mushrooms. I wasn't sure, but you guys know how that goes. It's the dead of winter, but it's been not so bad for weather, except the ice has been terrible.
Yep, but we're still upright. So,
that's right. Yeah. And we are going to do kind of a catch-up kitchen.
Yeah, we're going to talk about some things that were mysteries.
Miscellaneous mysteries, of which we have talked about previously.
So we're going to have some resolution, at least on one of the mysteries.
A little bit.
Yeah. And so I think if you, our beloved fans, watched us back in June.
I think we're up to 49. All over.
In June, we went down to the Trempealeau Refuge.
Yes, we did. It was a very beautiful tour with a very somber story.
I showed you something out there in the woods, didn't I?
You did.
And it was a tombstone for a young man called Jim Yellowbank, and he had died in 1895.
Yes.
Couldn't find out anything about him, but then after the show ran on air, Jim Lisinski from Arcadia, who's a very good little historian.
Thank you, Jim.
Yep. He had found some articles in the old Winona paper that explained what the whole story was, at least most of the story anyway, and why this tombstone is out there in the woods. I mean, it is, right?
It's in the refuge.
Yeah, it's
all
right
by
there,
itself.
And there's nothing else around it. It's absolutely there by itself, this tombstone. I couldn't find out who was Jim Yellowbank. I couldn't find out anything. But then he did find some articles in the Winona paper. Now, this was the story. Supposedly in April, this Jim Yellowbank, and he was a young ho-chunk.
April of what year?
1895.
95, okay.
So he and I think a friend were coming back from, you know where Marshland is over there?
Yes, yes.
Because the ho-chunks at that time apparently were camped down there in the bottomlands.
On the Black River.
Right. And upriver, there was another camp. I think they were maybe ho-chunks as well, but they were closer to Winona. So we don't know if he was coming back from this other band and coming down to his own. Anyway, he had come down by Marshland, and was across the river. And again, we're unclear how many people were actually involved, but there was a fight, and Jim Yellowbank was stabbed, apparently in the head.
Oh.
And he was killed, of course.
Well, yeah, a violent act like that, death would most likely ensue.
Yeah, he was murdered. And so at that time, they weren't really sure what to do. They wanted to try to find out who the murderer was. And so they went and they talked to the Ho-Chunk band that was down there by Trempealeau.
And now the tribes then and now still have their own kind of governing system, don't they?
Well, yeah, and that's what made this thing interesting. They wanted to investigate it, but who they called to investigate it was a man that lived in La Crosse called Dr. Frank Powell, who also liked to call himself White Beaver.
Oh, okay. Was he native?
No, he was kind of a interesting character.
Oh, it sounds like, was he a shyster?
Well,
Or
he
gray
was-
around the edges?
I think he actually sold some kind of patent medicine.
Oh, okay.
And he was a friend of Buffalo Bill Cody, and supposedly a friend of the Indians. And anyway, if you Google him and read about him, you can make up your own mind. But he was kind of one of those shifty characters. But apparently, he had some credibility with the Ho-Chunks.
Oh, that could be dangerous for them.
Well, old White Beaver, and then he had a man that lived down by Trempealeau called Antoine Greeno.
Okay.
And he was half French and half Indian. And he went with Dr. White Beaver, and along with two interpreters and City Marshal Merwin of Trempealeau. And they went to this camp of Ho-Chunks that was up closer to Winona. And they talked to the chief there, who they said he was aged Chief White Snake. Now a wreck, but 15 or 20 years ago, one of the great war chiefs of his tribe.
Oh,
Okay.
that's interesting.
Well, and they were trying to track down what actually happened to Jim.
Was he infirm that they made the comment that 20 years previously he was a powerful war chief?
Well, this sounded like he was an older guy. You
Okay.
know, older and,
Yeah.
probably like you and me. Anyway, he wasn't back in his fighting prime anymore.
I cannot believe you just said that.
So they had a couple of suspects, and one was a man by the name of Blackhawk, but he was over by Black River.
Okay.
And they went and got them and kind of tried to figure out if he was the guy that did it.
Well, how would you know?
Well,
I mean, these people are. If he was over in Black River Falls, and we're talking the timestamp, he probably didn't take the train. He probably either walked or went on horseback, cross country, and so there had to be days and potentially weeks in between. From the time that he was stabbed in the head,
it doesn't say here how fast this investigation started.
Okay.
It might have been a couple weeks. We don't know because we just don't have that information.
Did we have Pony Express through our area?
No.
Did we have some kind of pony mail service?
Well, I think we did. Yeah. But
oh
anyway,
my goodness. Okay, sorry.
The other suspect was a man by the name of Dan Deer, D-E-E-R.
Okay, like whitetail.
But the chief, White Snake, said that Dan Deer is my wife's brother.
Oh,
So
the
that-
plot thickens.
Yes, and he said, my lips must close now, said the old warrior. So he said, if the man who killed Yellowbank were the child of my own body, were he son or brother, and his guilt cannot be proved by you, let him die. So, what
Is this?
to cut to the chase,
Oh, brother.
it got complicated. They said that they did bring this Blackhawk over from Black River.
Okay.
And that he had he had convinced everybody that he was not responsible for this murder, and that he had, it says, Black Hawk reverently placed one hand on the covering of the grave of Jim Yellowbank, and with the other he pointed toward the north where black clouds hung over Winona, and solemnly he said, "Who rests here knows that I am innocent. The spirit of yonder black cloud knows that Black Hawk speaks the truth."
Wow, that's a pretty profound
He said
statement.
he was not the one that did it.
And what it says, my tongue is straight. So
Yeah.
that must be, I am honest.
And they said they had questioned other Indians around. They were trying to figure out what all happened, and they never did find this Dan Deer. It said that he left the Indian campsite
And disappeared.
He was going to sell a pony in Gilesville, and that was the last they saw or heard of him.
Did he actually sell the pony?
We don't know.
Because, maybe.
Maybe he got on the pony and left.
Well, that could be it. Or, maybe, what's that? Triple S? Shoot, shovel in silence?
Oh.
Or whatever, or whatever
Yeah.
that's saying. Well, you never know, Nancy. We're talking the 1890s here,
Yeah.
right?
I think the takeaway from this, because there apparently was, they never did find the murderer.
Well, and it sounded like there was a little bit of internal familial
Yeah, there
corruption.
I think the takeaway was that the established authorities in Trempealeau, the local police, they didn't really know how to handle this.
Yeah. It was
Because
complex.
like you say, the Indians had kind of had their own system for dealing with things. And I think they just weren't really sure what to do. And maybe by, this Dan Deer leaving, maybe that just gave everybody an out. And
Right,
it was a
right.
terrible thing. But that was why he's buried down there. Apparently there had been a Ho-Chunk camp down there. And yeah, he'd been murdered. It was pretty sad. It does not say who sprung for that tombstone, though.
Well, and I wonder if that's the original burial plot.
We don't have that information?
Well, if we go back 100 years in time, it wouldn't be so wooded.
No, it was probably open.
Yeah, it would have been more open. It would have been more traveled because it wasn't what it is today.
Yeah, it was.
Wow,
But
Nancy, that's incredible.
He was a murder victim, so that's very sad.
It is, but
Yeah.
that is one of our history's mysteries that is now solved.
Well, yeah, at least we
Sort
know
of.
who he was. We don't know who was the actual perpetrator of the crime.
Well,
Yeah.
but we've got two fellas, one who said I'm innocent and one who disappeared.
Who left.
And so we're not going to speculate anything, but like you said, we have a little bit more history
Right.
on who this young man was.
We don't have any information on what the circumstances were. Did they get in a fight? Had they been...
Was it a fight over a woman?
Yeah, or had they been drinking? Or was there some past history between them? We don't know. We just don't have
right.
that.
Exactly. Exactly.
And then the other mystery that we talked about, we also that also involved a tombstone, and that is this tombstone that's down in the basement of the Lee Schoolhouse
Yes.
at the fairgrounds.
Definitely. That was one of Nancy's surprises
Yeah.
for me. One of her history's mysteries where she doesn't tell me what's going on.
And it's for a William H. Travis, and he died in 1859, it said, and he was aged 45. Well, Jim Lisinski had also found something, that there is a William H. Travis that is buried in the New Amsterdam Cemetery.
Oh.
But the dates don't match up. It's like this was later.
A big time difference?
Well, yeah, and so I have not really been able to figure out how to make these two different timelines fit in one box. I just can't. But what are the chances that there would have been two William H. Travises in in a fairly small area?
Well, we searched, I'm going to say northern Trempealeau County, which would be anywhere from Ettrick north. Mm-hmm. And we did find a few Travises, but no way to link them back to this gentleman.
No, none of them fit that. So we got to say this is a potential solution that maybe this, I don't know, maybe this was a mistake in this tombstone, I don't know. But there is a possibility that this guy is actually buried in New Amsterdam.
What are the differences in the times?
I think it was about 10 years.
So could they have potentially moved him and somebody jazzed up the other headstone?
I suppose, but you would think that how often do they make a mistake on tombstones like that?
Well, and how often do you move bodies?
Well, and we don't know. And the interesting thing was, after we did this show, I had a man that left a message on the phone for me that said he remembered there being another tombstone down in the swamp there in Galesville.
Okay.
But it was for a man that had like a Norwegian type name.
Did he remember the name or what printing press they put the stone underneath to support?
No, I didn't, I didn't get the details. But I think the theory that, my friend down in Galesville, she suggested that perhaps these stones had been up above a little bit on the bank up
Embankment.
above. And then when they started to develop that area, when people wanted to build houses, that maybe they just got rid of the stones, they let them go down in the swamp, or maybe the bank sloughed.
Oh, well, but
That makes sense.
well, and we don't know in that time period if they moved cemeteries reverently like they move them today, or we hope they move them today.
So again, this isn't solved, but there's a potential.
A potential.
Yeah. And then...
and we never know who's going to make the next phone call or send the next email to say, hey,
I have the solution.
I've got this, somebody talk to somebody, and I wondered where Jim got those Galesville newspapers, because I remember purchasing a house and all of the cupboards were lined with old newspapers.
That's what people did.
And I kept them. And that'll be a program for later on.
He actually, I think, Winona Paper has a database that's wonderful. I think he found it on there.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So we don't know, again. But over a year ago, you and I did that program on disappearances in the county.
Yes, we did.
2 of them, out of the 4 that we talked about, 2 of them were solved. Mr. Eagleson and Mr. Mish disappeared, but they were eventually found.
Yes.
Yes. And then there were 2 other cases that had not been solved, and one was actually Mary's great-grandfather, Edward Jelen, who disappeared in 1918.
That's right.
And we said there was a little kink in that story, in that a couple years later, a skull and some bones were found way down in Glencoe.
Yep. Where the Field of Dreams is, if those of you who are old enough to remember the Field of Dreams.
And at that time, there was some speculation that maybe that was Edward.
Right.
But then the story just got dropped.
Right.
And we don't know.
It fell apart, and we really don't know what happened to the skull.
No, couldn't find out anything. Mary thought, well, maybe it's a paperweight at the town of Glencoe office. We don't know. It might be in the town hall. Could not find anything about it. So that one, and then, I hate to spread rumors.
Uh-oh, here we go. We're going over to Edge.
But there was a rumor at the time that Edward's wife, Victoria, had... And then she buried him in the driveway.
Well, probably lawn, but eventually it was the townspeople gathered when they were putting in the driveway, thinking they were going to find him, right?
Well,
or did they dig up the driveway?
I think when they put in the new road, the driveway actually got manipulated and nobody found anything.
Maybe he was underneath the driveway.
He might still be there.
You never know. You just never know.
No.
And who would think these things would happen in Trempealeau County?
I don't know. And why they suspected the wife, Victoria, I never heard that either.
Well, the question remains. So if there's anybody out there with additional information,
If
We would
you
love to
know
hear it.
where Edward Jelen is buried, let us know. It's Mary's great grandpa.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we'd
so-
like to know for sure. But he is gone.
Yes, yeah. He was never seen again.
And the fourth story was...
Oh, that was down in Galesville, and that was the guy that was a student.
Yes.
He was, and the guy by the name of Olson.
Very smart young man, or
And
was
he was actually from the West Beaver, Oakwa area.
He was
And
naughty too, wasn't
his
he?
girlfriend, or this girl that he had been seeing, had, they found her murdered. They found her in a ditch.
Yes, and she was pregnant at the time.
Yep. And not too long after they found her body, this Olson, he disappeared and was never seen again.
So where do you think he ended up?
Well, we don't know. Like,
So he's the other one that we haven't been able to kind of put land legs on.
no, there's all kinds of theories, and they're all probably good. They said, well, maybe members of Clara, the girl that got murdered, maybe her family did him in.
They caught up with him on that cold night, right?
Yep. Or my mother, who lived to be 96, she remembered hearing this story because this happened, I think it was 1921 or so.
Okay.
She had heard this story in the 1930s, and people were saying that he went into the underground, which I don't think they meant he was buried. I think they thought he went into like organized crime.
Okay,
or something.
okay, maybe he was hiding in plain sight.
Yeah. But anyway, he was never seen again. So those were two disappearances that we never solved anyway.
No, we'll have to bring in the big guns if we're going to make movement on that.
This is all before DNA, you know.
Oh, definitely,
Yeah.
definitely.
So, yeah, that's kind of bringing you up to date on a couple of these things. Most of the time we're talking about subjects that have a beginning and an end.
Right, and these are kind of a couple of sagas that if we get additional information, we need to share out so you all have the information that we have.
And we'll come back and let you know. So that was kind of depressing subject, but here I've got a real happy picture.
Oh, look at that.
This was Big Creek School, and this was their spring picnic, you know, at the end of the school year. And this was in 1948, and that is a happy-looking crowd.
And
isn't
that
it?
is a bunch of kids.
And parents.
And bib overalls
Yep.
and hats.
Look at them
What?
all.
Oh, and flowery dresses.
They were in. People remember those end of the year picnics as being just a huge event in the community.
It was a big deal, and lots and lots and lots of children.
Yeah. This was a beautiful school, this Big Creek School. The first one they had was wood and it burned down.
Oh, of course.
But they rebuilt this beautiful brick school, and it's not there anymore. It was north of Eliva a little bit, not too far from the county line.
Right, right.
But this was the school picnic, and unfortunately we don't have the names of, we don't have any names at all here. But maybe someone looking at this will say, oh, that was my uncle, or that was me. You never
That
know.
was my dad or my grandpa. How wonderful.
They said these school picnics like this, there were like two real big events in the year. One was the Christmas program,
Yes.
and the other was the school picnic at the end of the school
And they were
season.
usually a day-long event.
They were huge, and they said everybody in the community came to this. They said even the hired men.
There we go.
So everybody was included.
How wonderful and how happy. Nice
Yeah,
transition,
it's nice
Nancy.
It's nice to see a happy picture, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah. Everything that we talk about isn't all gloom, hopefully.
Although the cemetery shows really seem to be very popular.
People love the cemeteries.
And
don't
as soon
they?
as we get rid of the snow, I think we're going to head back out in Trempealeau County and
We'll
see what else
go
we
back
can
to
find.
the cemetery. Whoops, I gotta turn off my. This is
Uh-oh.
highly technical up here at the studio.
It's a
Apparently.
navigator.
Yeah, it's my oven timer.
Yes, Nancy puts on the navigator to tell us when it's time to
To
shut her down.
But I got a couple minutes. Quick, I'll show you this picture. This is a log cabin, and it was said it was built in the 1860s.
Wow.
And it was built on a farm in North Creek. And it didn't say who built the cabin, but they said the farm at the time, that this house is on a farm that was owned by Mr. and Mrs. Clarence Sabota.
Okay.
And I'm looking on some old atlases. I think that was kind of right behind where St. Michael's Church was.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But look at that, it's a beautiful log house.
I know. It's amazing the craftsmanship of the day.
It was
Considering the tools, do you think the ancient aliens came down and helped them make log cabins?
I think those old Polish settlers knew what they were doing.
All you have to do is go tour the churches. And the Polish settlers had a bead on a few things, Nancy.
They were very good craftsmen, and they said that before they built St. Michael's Church, the first one, that they had actually had some services in this house.
Oh, that's neat.
So that's kind of another happy picture.
It is to wrap our show up.
And this other one I found on the internet, and it just really, I just fell in love with it.
Oh.
It's more like a painting from a photograph.
Okay.
And there was no, it didn't say who did it. But I look at that picture and I thought, I bet if I went up there and went up the steps and opened that door, that screen door, I would know exactly how it would sound.
Exactly how it would smell.
And here on the back porch, I know what would be on that back porch.
Yeah.
All kinds of shoes and boots, coats hanging up.
Hanging on the wall.
And probably wood stacked in there as well.
Yes, yes. Well, you've been out to my place. We got wood on our porch.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. And then you would go through that little porch thing and you'd wind up in the big old kitchen.
That's right.
And then off to the right here, that would be the living room.
Yep.
And then upstairs were the bedrooms. And
with those steep, crazy steps.
Yeah. But I look at that picture and yeah, it does make it kind of cold, doesn't it?
Well, that's kind of what we're dealing with now, although we've only had a couple of weeks where the smoke from the stacks went straight up.
Yeah.
That's when you know it's cold.
Yeah. But I just look at that picture and I think, oh, I just know what that house was like inside.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it would smell like Grandma's kitchen.
Yeah. Yeah, it'd probably smell like barn too on that back porch.
On the porch? Oh, yeah. We smelling like recycled feed, as we call it today, because we don't want to be offensive to the masses.
So if somebody recognizes this picture and says, hey, that was mine, I apologize. It was, like I say, it was on the internet and I just fell in love with it.
Well, that could be multitude of houses that are in this area, even, Nancy.
Yeah, that's the old balloon frame.
Well, that, and then it's got the salt box, which was the first part of the house.
Yeah.
Which is the porch and where that lid goes up. Because you would flip open the bottom and dump in the salt. So it's a salt box, and then they put on the balloon.
So it's real common design.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. And thank you all for joining us on
the History Files.
And
if you have any information on these mysteries,
send them in.
Or not, let us know. So thank you for spending this lovely
sunless chilly
afternoon.
Frosty, because the pine trees look fuzzy with white. Yeah, we're in the dead of winter, Nancy.
We need some sun, but anyway, thank you. Bye-bye.